this afternoon and tonight, a significant winter storm, including heavy snow with limited readings.
Hello, and welcome to the SnowBrains Podcast, where it's my job to interview the most intelligent people in the snow sports industry and pass their fascinating knowledge on to you, our listeners. I'm your host, Miles Clark. I'm a professional free skier, a professional mountain guide, a UC Berkeley molecular cell biology graduate, the founder and CEO of SnowBrains, and I respect, depend on, appreciate, and love all ski patrollers everywhere. Today's SnowBrains Podcast is brought to you by A Golden State, the California leader in premium cannabis flower. Born in Northern California under the watch of the Cascade Mountains, A Golden State's plants are hand-watered with snowmelt from Mount Shasta and sustainably grown in their own carbon-neutral hydroelectric cultivation facility. Today's SnowBrains Podcast is brought to you by Killington. Make the most of any spring weekend. Head to Killington, the East Coast's biggest mountain resort. The Beast of the East has everything you need to enjoy a winter getaway. From the best ski and snowboard terrain to one-of-a-kind dining options and fabulous après ski experiences. Vacation packages are available now. Visit killington.com to learn more. My guest today is Park City Professional Ski Patrol's business manager, Patrick Murphy. Park City Pro Patrol has been battling Vail Resorts for a living wage and more for years. They've been through 50 negotiating sessions with Vail Resorts in the past year. Ski patrollers are highly trained individuals and the most important people at any ski resort, and we believe they deserve that living wage and more. Hello, Patrick. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me today.
You bet, man. So let's start with you telling us who you are and what you do.
So my name is Patrick Murphy. I'm a ski patroller at Park City Mountain. I ski patrol out of the canyon side. I am the business manager for the Park City Professional Ski Patrol Association. So that is the union that represents our ski patrol here in Park City. We also represent the Mountain Safety Patrol. So this is my 5th year on our ski patrol and my 6th winter out in Utah.
We're really happy to be talking to somebody who's been in these meetings, who's dealt with this whole situation, because it is reverberating across the ski industry, especially in the U.S. right now. I know people want to know what's going on with, ski patrol, basically looking for solutions with Vail Resorts. So let's start off with that problem with Vail Resorts. So Park City Ski Patrol, or Park City Professional Ski Patrol, has having a problem with Vail, who owns Park City Ski Resort in Utah. So my first question is, what has been the overriding problem Park City Pro Patrol has with Vail Resorts?
Well, I guess it's a problem that we've just been facing through negotiations through the years, and it's just been really focused in this round of negotiations, is getting the recognition that we feel that we deserve for the work that we do and the professional work that we do and the risks that we take on. So we've been driving towards getting better employee retention so that we can have just a better and safer ski patrol. And a big part of that is getting the respect we feel we deserve and the wages we feel we deserve. So that's been the main problem, is just working towards getting that respect and the wages that should be in line with what we deserve.
Yeah. And on that, what are the wages now? Maybe what were they recently, and what are you hoping for?
Well, in the contract we just signed, technically the starting wage is $15 an hour, but we have implemented an incentive package that effectively raises everyone's wages above that. So we've been able to achieve an average wage of about $19 an hour for our patrol, which was our goal when we started negotiations. But the economy and the climate of the ski industry as a whole has changed a lot over the course of our negotiations. So that's really not as big of a victory as it would have been if we had signed this contract, say, 2 years ago when we began negotiating. So that's where we're at now. And before that, we were working with a starting wage of $13.25 for our rookie patrollers, our first-year patrollers. We're jumping up from $13.25 to more like $16 an hour for our first-year patrollers.
Okay, and tell us a little bit about the incentives. So you start at $16 an hour, and there are incentives that can get you to $19.
Yeah, so we have incentives for a variety of different things. So they really just go to recognize the education and qualifications that we have with this job. So we have medical incentives for EMTs, medic certifications, anything above an EMT, there's an incentive for. We implemented new incentives for training positions. So we have people that are involved with first year patroller training. We have people that do our medical training each fall, and we have lift evacuation training every fall. So we do those trainings in-house, and we have incentives now that are recognizing the hard work that our patrollers are doing to train up all of our patrollers annually, because there's a lot of skills that this job has that we're constantly refreshing every year. So we don't just come in and get trained on lift evacuation our first year and then just remember all of those skills forever. We come in every fall and we do a full week of lift evacuation training each year. So those trainers are getting incentive for that. We have an avalanche rescue dog program. So we have incentives for that. And we've had that incentive program in place, but we were able to bolster that pay a little bit and get them a little bit more money. They spend so much time working with their dogs and getting them to be some of the best dogs in the ski industry. So that incentive has increased for that. And then our coordinators, like our lift evacuation coordinators, they have incentives. So things of that nature. And then we're also able to get an incentive this year that if you work a couple shifts out of the other base area. So we have a pretty unique mountain in that there's used to be two distinct mountains, and now we're operating under one company. So I work out of the canyon side. If I work for a week of shifts out of the Park City side, I'll get $1 an hour for every shift I've worked the entire year. So a lot of incentives like that.
Okay, great. And then, so does it cost patrollers money to take these classes?
Well, a lot of people, if they have an EMT, for example, or if they're paramedic certified, those are courses that are not provided through the company. So people are paying money out of pocket to get those EMT certifications. And those provide a really strong skill set for our patrollers. Our baseline is we're required to all have an OEC and outdoor emergency care certification. But a lot of us come in with an EMT or a higher medical certification. They pay for those out of pocket. So those incentives recognize that they're bringing in a bigger skill set, a better skill set, I would say. And it goes to pay back what they've already put in.
Which I think is huge. And EMT for our listeners is emergency medical technician. So how many pro patrollers work at Park City?
We have about 180 pro patrollers on our patrol.
Whoa.
And that I should say that's our bargaining unit. So that doesn't include our supervisors and our managers. So they're outside of our bargaining unit. So bargaining unit, for more of the layman terms, is people represented by our union. So that's all of our ski patrollers and mountain safety patrollers up to the managerial level.
And that's huge. That's got to be
and that does include mountain safety patrol too.
Copy that. And that's got to be one of the biggest professional patrol teams in the U.S. That's huge. And, I got a couple questions here just about your mountain in general. You may or may not know. How many skier visits does Park City see per season?
Those numbers are not released to us.
Right. Yeah.
So that's resorts, something I'm not privy to.
Most resorts do hold that close to the chest. Because I'm curious how many people come to Park City, how many come in one day, and just for listeners, I think a relatively big ski area in the U.S. can see 10,000 skier visits in a day. Park City is about twice as big as a normal big area, so there's a good chance Park City is able to see 15,000 more in a day. You might not be able to release this either, but I know from the little bit of research I've done, usually you get about one injury per 1,000 skier visits. So I'm curious, how many accidents which I think you guys call wrecks, how many accidents might you guys see in a busy day at Park City?
Well, I work on the canyon side, so we have separate radio channels and everything. So on a busy day, we're looking at above 20, like a 20 to 30 on a busy day.
Wow.
On kind of a crazy day. And then Park City generally sees a higher volume of traffic and as a result, a higher volume of incidents.
Wow.
So I can't speak too much to them, but they're seeing more than us. So we're definitely above 50 across both base areas on a really busy day and probably closer to 70.
Wow. So incredible. So just giving our listeners an idea how much work these folks are doing and how challenging some of these evacuations can be. They range from just, walking people and skiing them down the hill with, something like a, bent finger to, a helicopter evacuation for, traumatic brain injuries and more. So these people are highly skilled. What they do is very important. There's no argument to me. They're the most important people on the mountain. So without them, I wouldn't feel safe going out there. And I don't think you would either. Anybody would. So just to recap a little bit, the root problems, have been with the negotiation of Vail. It sounds like pay, basic levels of respect, and even some uniform issues. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, we've been dealing with that, and it seems like a really petty issue on the surface, but it really is important to us and every patroller, I think, anywhere, is just having uniforms that are both breathable and waterproof, and something you can work in and day out, because we're working in any number of conditions. Because if it's a really cold day, it's blowing snow, we get 2 feet of snow, the winds are whipping, up into the 80s up on the ridge. We need something that can protect us then. And then, we don't deal with it as much as some other resorts, within the Vail in particular, but you can get rainy days and you can get wet out there, and it's not safe to be outside all day. We don't have the option we can't just say, oh, I'm wet today, I get to go inside. If we're wet and we get called to go out, we have to go out. And if we're doing avalanche mitigation, we have to be out as long as we have to be out. So having uniforms that can keep us dry, that's one of the most baseline levels of safety you can provide. And that's something we've been unable to secure.
And that's frustrating, I think, on every level. So how long could a long day be for a ski patroller? Let's say you got to get up early, you do avalanche control, and then you're there all the way till sweep when you are help escorting the guests off the mountain. How long might a full day like that be for a ski patroller?
So it wouldn't be uncommon to be coming in at 5 a.m. or earlier for an avalanche mitigation day. And that's just for our baseline patrollers. Now, we've got our snow safety team who come up with the avalanche mitigation plan, and they're coming in before 3 a.m. to make sure they've got the weather, and they're figuring out where we're going to go for our routes. And someone's got to come in and get all of the bombs prepared. So they're coming in early and getting up and assembling shots, as we say. So some people are in at 3 a.m., some people get in at 5 a.m. And then we're here every day until about 5 p.m. It could be 5:30 or 6 p.m. on a really long day. And a lot of that's dependent on where on the mountain you are. But I would say, 3 a.m. is our early end and 6 p.m. is our late end.
Wow. So we're talking about working over 12 hours in a day, and with 12 hours being relatively normal, and some people going up to 18. So these people grind, we're starting to paint this picture, what does ski patrol do? And coming back to the uniforms thing and both issues, the uniforms and how long you guys are out there. I'm relatively new to Utah. I'm a California boy. I've been out here, part-time for about 3 years, and it is cold out here, people. It being 0 degrees, it being single digits is normal. And then these guys are up on the ridge, at sunrise or earlier, and then out there at sunset or later, and the wind is blowing. It's terrifyingly cold, especially if you're not used to it. I know these people get used to it, but it reflects a little bit more about how important these uniforms are, how important it is to treat patrol with respect, and how important these people are on the mountain. They're the ones who are going to get you down. They're the ones that are going to help you survive and end up with the best case scenario if you do get injured. So I want to come back to the negotiations. Park City Pro Patrol just went through 50 negotiating sessions with Vail Resorts. And that's brutal. And it kind of makes me think that Vail was truly playing hardball and unwilling to give up any ground in these negotiations. Is that what you experienced in the negotiating room? Because you were in there. Was Vail pretty unwilling to give ground?
Yeah, it certainly felt like that at a certain point. And now, as a unionized patrol, we have the ability to negotiate for ourselves. And that does give us a good deal of leverage and power because we've got the unity amongst ourselves. But we always keep in mind that, a company like Vail Resorts owns so many other resorts. So we're really not just bargaining for ourselves, we're bargaining for all other patrollers within the company and then within the West. So it certainly felt like that was how they were approaching it as well, was that if they gave us something, they felt that they were going to have to give that to everyone, which of course is our goal. We'd love to see us raise our wages and then see everyone else raise their wages in order to keep up with us. So it definitely started to feel like that.
I hadn't even thought about that. And that is the pivotal issue there, right? That is why they're playing hardball, because if they give ground to you, they got to give it to all the patrollers throughout there. And I failed to do the research before, but they own, I think, about 40 mountains now. So
I think it's 40 in the US now. Yeah.
40 in the US.
Might be 41.
So let's call it a lot. Yeah. So somewhere around 40 ski resorts. And last I read, Vail is sitting on somewhere around $1.9 billion right now, essentially cash in a bank account. And so I think that those numbers frustrate the common person, because you're thinking, wow, they've got all this money and they're fighting tooth and nail against you guys. to get, essentially a living wage. So another question on the negotiations, why do you think nothing happened despite dedicating 50 meetings to creating solutions with Vail?
Oh, I'm not sure. I mean, it just felt like it kind of just dragged on. And there was a long period where there was almost nothing that was being accomplished. And I didn't join in on the negotiation sessions until I think 46. So a lot happened before I was at the table. And I can't really speak to what was going on, but I know it was really frustrating for our negotiating committee to just see that lack of progress at the table.
And my guess is it comes back to your previous answer that, they are holding their ground because if they give any ground to you, they might have to give it to all 40 of their ski patrol teams. So that
no
that
matter
makes a
how
lot of
modest
sense.
our asks are.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So I actually hadn't even crossed my mind. So that's illuminating. What was Park City Pro Patrol's major goals in these negotiations? What exactly were you looking for?
Like I said earlier, we were really trying to drive up employee retention. We've been on a kind of a bad run in the last few years where we're losing a lot of really good patrollers. And you can't replace someone that's been on the mountain for 21 years with a brand new patroller in their first year. The amount of institutional knowledge we've been losing year over year has been really tough on our patrol. And it's really just hard for our patrol to be losing that much experience. So we're trying to nip that problem in the bud. And the best way we could think of doing that is to increase our wages and increase incentives for patrollers to stick around long term, because the longer a patroller stays around, the better they get. And this is something that it's hard to quantify, that institutional knowledge on a mountain. But if you've ever skied on a mountain, skiers that are on the mountain constantly, it's such a nuanced job with knowing the terrain and how things operate, and the skill set that we come in with and we develop year after year is just so vast. You can't expect people to be experts instantly or even after 5 years. So speaking of my situation, I'm just beginning to understand what this job demands of me. So we're trying to keep around those people that have been here for 10 plus years and make sure that we can keep this patrol strong.
Yeah, and hopefully there's going to be more systems in place to keep those veteran patrollers at your mountain with all that nuanced knowledge. And that makes me think of another question. So low end is around $16 an hour when a new patroller signs on. What's the high end? What does a 20-year patroller make?
Now, that depends a lot because with this incentive structure, it's hard to say. But our high-end patrollers are making around $24 an hour. And that's just a select few people. We have a lot of people that were in that 10-year range that were still below $20 an hour. So that was one of the problems we were trying to work on, is just getting those people that have been here for 10 years. Because really what we're looking at is, we call it wage compression. So if you're here for your first 3 years, you're making these incremental wage increases. And then after 3 years, your wage growth potential is really stopping. So you're flatlining, you're flattening out at a certain point. So we're looking for a way that you can continue to grow through your years, and addressing that 10-year range is really the goal here, so that they'll stay after 10 years. Because we can get people to 7, but then after 7 years, you're really just looking at a 3% wage increase every year, which is, it's not very much.
It's almost insulting. I was looking up some other wages, so grocery store checkout people and the people who bag your groceries, which are, awesome people, they make about the same as a ski patroller, right? So they're coming in making like $15, $16 an hour. And then I know for a fact that even just here at Smith's in Park City, they were hiring people at $24 or $25 an hour entry level to basically unload the trucks, because they were having some shortages with COVID. So people entry level, just unloading trucks and putting groceries from trucks into the store, basically into the back storage area, are making what these patrollers are making after 20 years. So again, just trying to create comparisons and help us all wrap our minds around this. Because for me, and I have a lot of friends that patrol, it's so frustrating that there's not this incentive program that should be continuing annually, because these people who've been there for a long time are so valuable. And one of the big problems I think there is that ski patrollers love to ski. And we'll get back into that. So I think there's, ski resorts take advantage of that. But before I get that too far ahead of myself, who represents Vail in these negotiating meetings?
So sitting on the other side of the bargaining table for these negotiations, Vail has their legal counsel. So they had outside legal counsel. And after, I believe, 45 sessions, it might have been after 44 sessions, they opted to go with an internal counsel. So they switched to a different lawyer. So they always have one of their lawyers at the bargaining table. And then generally we were looking at our VP and COO of Park City Mountain Resort, which is Mike Gore. He was at negotiation sessions, but he didn't join in until after around the 20th negotiation session, I think. And then we had our patrol director was in the negotiations for a long time. And then they, on their side of things, they switched some things around. And then Alicia French, who is another Vail representative.
Well, no, that's great. But I guess my bottom line question, though, is my understanding is, Vail is one of the biggest, most powerful, most, I guess, financially sound companies right now. They have a lot of money. So just imagine how powerful their lawyer counsel is going to be. And is anybody on your team a lawyer?
We don't have any lawyers sitting at the table with us. We do have representation with CWA as our parent union, Communication Workers of America. So Great. We have a representative with CWA who sits in on the bargaining sessions with us. And although he's not a lawyer, he's much more savvy with these negotiations. And he's sat in on a lot of these. So he knows a lot more about the nitty gritty than we do. And then we can consult with legal counsel when needed. Okay, but not to the same degree that we don't have our high-powered lawyer sitting right next to us. It's a bunch of pro ski patrollers sitting at the bargaining table representing our ski patrol.
Yeah, and I like that. I mean, what you guys have on your side is the heart and soul, but that's really challenging when sitting across from you are hardened, well-trained, very experienced, high money lawyers. I've dealt with those type of people in my life, and it's really challenging. They're very good at what they do. I'll leave it at that. They're very good at what they do. And it can be really, really frustrating. It can be like talking to a brick wall at times. So it's easy to believe that, with that dichotomy of almost David and Goliath on that legal side of things, that you're now at 50, it took 50 negotiating sessions, but you did get to a contract. So that's what I want to hit next. So it appears, if I'm not mistaken, in January 2022, Park City Pro Patrol signed a contract with Vail Resorts. So could you tell us what was in that contract, and was this the contract that Ski Patrol wanted?
Well, I won't say it was a perfect contract. We did get a lot of things that we did want, but there's a lot of things that we still were not able to achieve. And we're just going to continue to work on building solidarity amongst ourselves. We didn't get the base wages that we were looking for. So we were looking to raise our base wages up to $17 an hour, which is a figure that we came to just looking at what other patrols in the Wasatch and the American West are making. So could you tell us a little more about that? What other patrollers make in your area? Yeah, so $17 an hour. We were looking at that, just looking at Snowbird and Alta getting $17 an hour as their starting wage. We're looking at Solitude and Brighton as well. And they're in that $16, $17 range. And so is Deer Valley, who we share a rope line with. I mean, we're like true neighbors right there. So, if they can make that, then so can we. Now, what we were able to do is we were able to bolster that incentive package. So we get a lot of incentives for the trainings that we take on and the responsibilities that we have, and some recognition for our certifications and qualifications. And I don't believe that all of those resorts have those incentives. So we are able to grow our wages a little bit in that way, but we still came up short on those wages. And we came up short on what we call wage compression, which I was talking about. So we were looking for a better incremental wage increase for those patrollers that aren't in their first, second, and third year. So that's something we're going to continue to work towards. Okay. And so, sort of a blunt question here, and we'll get into it. You guys were essentially considering a strike this winter, if I'm not mistaken. And so I'm curious, are you truly, you're already reflecting this a bit, but are you truly happy with this deal, with this contract with Vail? Or do you feel like it might be a bit of a Band-Aid that Vail offered to prevent a strike, and some of the real issues like not getting paid quite enough might still linger? I am happy we got a deal in place. I'm really happy that we aren't still in negotiations, but this is an ongoing problem, and there's constantly issues we're going to continue to work towards. So I wouldn't so much call it a Band-Aid, but I would say that we're going to continue driving towards these changes. So we still have a lot of work to do. We still have a lot of improvements we can make. So this certainly isn't perfect. And the reality is we'll never get a perfect contract, but hopefully we can continue to get things that are closer and closer to perfect. I think this was closer, but there's still a lot of room for us to work towards for our next contract. When will you begin negotiating the next contract, and when do you hope to have that in place? We'll start negotiating the next one in spring of 2024. So we're on the same bargaining timetable as a couple other resorts in our local chapter of the Communication Workers of America. So that should give us some added bargaining power, hopefully. Being able to sit down at the table and know that our patrollers at Breckenridge are also sitting down at the table. So just having that in place is going to be really nice.
Okay, we're going to learn more about the union situation moving forward. But let's just jump into the strike a little bit here. That didn't happen. So please tell us a little bit about the strike that Park City Pro Patrol was considering this season.
Yeah, so we authorized a vote to strike, which gave us the ability to strike. Now, when we're in a contract, we have a no strike, no lockout clause, which means we cannot cause a work stoppage as patrollers, and the company cannot lock us out and cause a work stoppage. Now, we had been without a contract since November of 2020.
Oh, wow.
So we were not protected by that no strike, no lockout clause. So
wow.
At any point, the company could have caused a work stoppage, and we had to go through a process to authorize a strike just to give us the ability to strike. So it gave us that card to put in our hand, essentially. We do consider that the nuclear option, and we were hoping to avoid using it because a work stoppage has vast and far-reaching effects on the community and other employees on the mountain. It's not something that happens in a vacuum, and we were well aware of that. So we really wanted to avoid it, and we're really happy that we were able to avoid it.
And what would the basically results have been? What would have been the consequences of a strike?
Very likely there would have been, closures on the mountain. So if we had effectively struck on the mountains, then it would have been really difficult to open. Now our managers would still be able to open maybe a few lifts here and there, but everyone saw the pictures and the videos of the crowds, and that's when we've got all of our patrol there. So imagine putting all those people on 2 lifts. They would have really felt it, and the economic effect would have been pretty great.
It would have been huge. So what were the goals of the strike? What was the goal of the potential strike?
Just to tell the company that we really stand together as a patrol and that we're really serious about what we're asking for. So we think that vote sent that message because we passed that strike authorization vote. I think 98% of people that voted for the strike. So all union members voted, and we have a couple patrollers that aren't union members and they didn't vote. So we looked at 92% of our entire patrol and 98% of voting patrollers voted to authorize. So we sent that message that we stand together and we stand strong and resolute in our goals for raising wages and getting more respect from the company. And the company saw that.
And I think that was a great strategy because you really sent a message to them that, hey, we are ready to rumble. We are ready to go to the mat on this one. And once the negotiating team across the table sees that changes everything, especially after so many negotiations, after 50 negotiating meetings. What would your strike would have looked like? As a visual, let's say I'm a person that wanted to ski Park City today. I walk up and what do I see?
You would have seen a lot of patrollers and a lot of community members standing in a picket line at both base areas. So we would have been, in front of the payday lift. We would have been in front of the Red Pine gondola, and we got a lot of support from our community on this. So we had a lot of people reaching out. What can we do to help? We want to stand with you. We want to stand strong. So it would have looked like a lot of patrollers standing up for what we deserved, and it would have been a lot of the community standing there with us.
I kind of think it would have been awesome. I mean, it's bad for people who want to go skiing. Hopefully it would have been short-lived, but the power of it, there's something about it, that feeling of revolution, of fighting for what's right, and fighting for the common human. And I very much like that. And I think a lot of people do, right? We all like the underdog. We all love the David and Goliath story. So I think, there's something exciting about that. And I'm glad that you guys put that on the table so firmly. And do you think the firmness of you setting it on the table, the potential strike, do you think that really helped in your negotiations?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. And I think if we had gone for that vote and we hadn't passed a vote with such a strong percentage, then it wouldn't have sent the same message. But I think we sent a strong and effective message, and that really changed the tone of negotiations after that. And the company really started to talk more seriously about what they could do about changing things. Because up till then, I'm not sure that they were taking our demands as seriously as they should have.
And I agree with you that what you said previously, that if you would have struck, I don't think they would have gotten the mountain open at all, in my view. I don't think you can hire scabs. I don't think you can fill these positions. Patrollers are not easily found or created. So I think it would have been a very profound impact on the ski resort, on the community, on the economy. It's a very powerful bargaining tool. Today's SnowBrains Podcast is brought to you by a Golden State. What started from humble beginnings long before the cannabis renaissance is now California's highest quality flower. A Golden State's proprietary exotic strains are carefully curated for recreation or relaxation, sharing with friends or unwinding solo. Their artisanal whole flower is available in eighths and pre-rolls at dispensaries across California. Today's SnowBrains Podcast is brought to you by Killington. Take advantage of the longest season in the East with the Killington Spring Pass. Pay just $349 for unlimited ski and snowboard access to Killington Resort from March 18th through the end of the 21-22 season. With Killington's history of stretching the season late into May, that could be 6 weeks of prime skiing and riding. So grab your Spring Pass today before prices increase on March 18th. Learn more at killington.com. And you guys did kind of a practice strike around a year ago. I could be mistaken on the timing. What was the goal? Yeah, what was the goal there? Tell me about that and the timing.
Kind of just to show them that we had solidarity and that we really cared about what we were doing, and just to show them that, we can stand up and we have community support and we really want these things and we're serious about them, and just to show them what it looks like, basically.
And to continue with the community support, you had a $100,000 strike fund. How did you raise this, and where did it come from? How did this happen?
Yeah, we got an overwhelming amount of support financially. So we were getting a lot of feedback from the public when we were doing these public demonstrations, and people are asking, how can we help? Who can we donate to? Like, how can we help, basically, financially? Right. So we came up with the idea to start a GoFundMe just as a solidarity fund. So it's more of a safety blanket if we were going to have a work stoppage, something that would give us a little bit of financial backing just in case we were out of work for any amount of time. And we set the goal at 100,000, which was a really lofty goal, and we achieved it. So we're really happy and overwhelmed by what the community did by putting that behind us.
And I think that really shows where the community is at, where the common man is at with this battle that's going on here. And so give us a little detail on this, because I've never heard of a strike fund, and I think a lot of us haven't. What would this money be used for?
So it would have gone towards our basic living expenses. So if we had been out of work, this would have been a way for us to buy our groceries and pay our rent and pay our car bill and, get gas so you can go to the grocery store. So it would have gone towards our most basic human needs. No one was going to be getting rich off this amount of money. It would have been just enough money to put food on our table so we can continue to live. A lot of patrollers are living paycheck to paycheck. So the thought of missing out on even one paycheck was a really scary thought. And it's a serious leap of faith for a lot of people just to, make the decision to not work. So not everyone has the privilege to make that decision. So this gave people the ability to know, okay, I'll still be able to eat dinner tomorrow night if we go on strike. And, maybe I won't get evicted if I go on strike. So it was just to back up our patrollers who need that help.
And for our listeners, Patrick's showing some emotion here. I mean, this is serious. A lot of patrollers are paycheck to paycheck. For them to sign this, and maybe this, we need to give this for some perspective. For them to sign on to this, hey, we will strike. They're also saying we will not get a paycheck. And so this strike fund is genius. I love that it's the community supporting it. But again, nobody's getting rich off this. We're talking about 180 patrollers that work at Park City and $100,000. You do the math there. It's well less than, it's like $600 a person. So it's something that the community, solidarity, really showing support for these people. And I think that's just huge. In a way, the $100,000 strike fund says more than anything else in this battle. And I also want to come back to, so you got $100,000 in this account. What are you going to do with these funds now that you're not planning on striking?
Yeah, so we did think about that when we launched the fund, because we launched the fund thinking, well, hopefully we don't have to use this. So we better have a plan of action in case we don't use it. So we're electing a committee, which is going to be our charity committee. So we'll have patrollers from the Park City base area, the Canyon Space area, and Mountain Safety. And as a committee, they're going to be allotted a certain amount of money to donate to local charity causes. So it'll be up to them. So we're going to vote on these members, and then that way they can vet different organizations around town and around Utah and potentially nationwide. But we're looking locally primarily because we receive so much support from this local committee. So we're looking local community rather. So we're looking for a way to just put that right back into the community where it came from and continue to support and build these relationships with other organizations around town. And then a portion of the money is going to be going towards the United Professional Ski Patrol Association, which is our local chapter of our union that includes our patrollers up at Stevens Pass in Washington, Big Sky in Montana. It's us here, and then Steamboat Springs, Telluride, Breckenridge, and Crested Butte in Colorado. So we're looking for a way to basically keep a solidarity fund going for our patrollers in case any other patrollers need help in their negotiations in these upcoming years.
That's great. Yeah, because I was going to ask you too, did you consider just saving these funds for a future strike?
Yeah, we thought about that, but we really thought that giving back to the community would be a really good way to just foster goodwill and continue to give back to the community that clearly has our back. So if we can just reflect that support back to the community around us, we think that'd be really good too.
Yeah, and I think that is a great strategy. And it's clear that if you need another strike fund, you could raise another one. And especially with all the goodwill that you've done with this one, that should look really good in that potential future endeavor. You mentioned unionization. You mentioned some terrific mountains there. I was trying to count. It sounded like it was around 10 ski patrol teams around the country.
Yeah. I think it's 7 in the United Professional Ski Patrol Association, including us.
Okay.
And then Aspen Mountain, sorry. Okay. They're also unionized. So they're not within our union, but they have a union of their own, and they have a really good union. They've been unionized since the 80s. Whoa. So they have a long history of unionization there. So they're a really strong union too.
And so do you, because my understanding is the Park City Union started in 2000. So that's 22 years there.
Yeah, it started as the Canyons Professional Ski Patrol Association in the year 2000 is when they filed a petition to organize. So they're one of the longest, we are one of the longest tenured unions, I'd say. I don't know. We've been around for a while.
So it's a long time. So for our listeners, tell us, what does it mean to be unionized?
So when we're unionized, it gives us a unified voice against the company. So we work for a mega corporation, and it's really hard for any one of us to argue for wages or for uniforms or for education opportunities. So we go through avalanche courses, we go through medical courses, we go through lift evacuation courses. Now, if we're not organized, it's much more difficult to secure these classes. So the Canyons Professional Ski Patrol Association initially organized in order to bolster their avalanche training and coursework and get the gear they needed, because we live in a really dangerous place and there's a lot of avalanche mitigation to be done. So they were looking for more protection and more safety in the form of education and gear. So that was kind of the impetus for starting it. And that's continuing to be a driving force with our union, is giving us an opportunity to fight for these education opportunities and continue to get more benefits out of our job. So we do have health insurance with our job. And then it also gives us a process to basically push back against the company if there's any wrongdoing. So we have a grievance process in place, which is the business manager's responsibility in our union. So if there's any violations of the contract from the company's end or from our end, there's a grievance process in place. So if you're not getting what you deserve, what you're contractually obligated to get, then you go through grievance and arbitration. So it gives us that. And then we're a right to work state in Utah, which means if you're not unionized, the company can fire you at will, basically. So I could come in and have a bad hair day and get fired if we weren't unionized. But because we're unionized, we have protections as workers, and we have a way to protect ourselves against the company, essentially.
Well, thank you for all that information. I learned a lot there as well. So really good, really strong stance on why you would want to unionize, what the advantages are. Do you think, are there any disadvantages to being a union?
I do come in with a biased perspective, but I don't really see a disadvantage to being a union. I think, we pay dues. So I guess if I was going to say there's one disadvantage, is that I have to put money in, but we're putting in $13 a paycheck, $26 a month. And it's really peanuts in the scheme of things. So I think it's well worth the amount of money that we put in, and it comes with such a vast amount of protections and privileges and opportunities for us as a patrol.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I very much like the idea of unionizing, and $26 a month. Yeah, that's not a problem.
Yeah, I think it's certainly worth it, especially for ski patrollers.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's the big question that our listeners want to know the answer to, that maybe nobody knows, but I'm curious your thoughts. Why do mountains, ski resorts, fight so hard to keep ski patrol teams from unionizing? Because I know firsthand from other large ski areas, ski resorts, where they fight tooth and nail against ski patrol unionization, even to the point of giving ski patrol the raises they ask for and kind of anything they want if they will not unionize. So again, why do you think these ski resorts fight so hard against ski patrol from unionizing?
I think it's not just ski patrollers even. I think you're seeing a lot of pushback from big companies against unionization efforts across the country right now. I'm not entirely sure why, other than the fact that they know that it's beneficial for the employee to be unionized. So I don't really have a good answer for you on that one, but I think it's in the best interest of all workers to unionize. The counter argument that you hear time and again from companies against unionizing is that they have a good relationship with the employees and that they don't want to jeopardize that. And my counter argument is that it doesn't have to jeopardize it. It just gives us a unified front. So they can speak directly with one person that can represent the entire workforce, which I think is mutually beneficial for a company. Being able to sit down with just a team of 4 people and negotiate wages for everyone seems like it's very beneficial for all parties involved. And if you have a great relationship with the employees, why can't you have a great relationship with the union?
I agree, and some of it does come back to e pluribus unum, right? It's on the coins, on the everything in the U.S., on the seals, which essentially in Latin means from many one. So united, being united, we're more powerful, and when you're divided, it's much easier to keep those divisions, to make different deals, to make concessions. And the big ski resorts are de facto unions, right? They have a representative always. And so it really does make a lot of sense for then the ski patrol or other, areas of work on the mountain to have that union as well. I like that. Do you think other ski patrol teams at other ski resorts should unionize as well?
Yeah, I definitely do. I think everyone should. I think the more ski patrols that unionize, the better unions are going to get and the better treatment we're all going to get as workers. So not just ski patrollers. I mean, I think everyone on the mountain should be unionized, especially in today's day and age where we have a select few mega companies that own almost all of the market share of the ski industry. The odds are stacked against us. So there's one thing we can do, and that's stand together. And the best way to stand together is to form a union, and then our unions can stand with your union. So I think the more we organize, the stronger we're going to get and the better treatment we can get and the more respect we can get for all the hard work we do. So that's ski patrollers, that's the lift mechanics, that's the ski instructors, that's the lift operators, that's food and beverage. That's really everyone in this industry.
Thank you for that. That's some great insight right there. And just sticking to ski patrol teams, do you dream of someday a nationwide ski patrol union, which sounds already exists, but just doesn't have a ton of membership yet? But there's over 400 ski resorts in the U.S., probably 200 of which are relatively large, have decent sized patrol teams. Do you dream of that someday, and the power and just the bargaining power that would give you guys?
Oh, definitely. I definitely think about that a lot. In particular, I think just starting locally, thinking, man, if we could everyone within Vail Resorts, if all of us could unionize, then we could have one negotiating committee that could bargain. And then if everyone that works for Alterra could unionize, then they could negotiate. And then we could join together, and then we'd have the whole industry. So that's where I look at it, as one by one, and then eventually everyone joining together and standing together.
Yeah, even statewide, right? Just a Utah, union of ski patrollers. What do you think what do you think are the biggest obstacles in creating a Vail Resorts ski patrol union?
Well, you have to start at the ground level at your mountain, essentially. So we need movements to start everywhere before we can join in together. You can't do it all at once. So I guess just getting that solidarity and that enthusiasm amongst each patrol is important. And then once you go from there, then you can file petitions to organize and start your own unions. And then once we have those unions, then we'll be able to, link arms together.
Yeah, I imagine, a Johnny Appleseed someday, going from resort to resort, because I feel like one person could maybe light this fire, especially once good examples are in place, which is what Park City Pro Patrol is doing right now. So we thank you for that. Let's take a step back. And again, I'm trying to paint a little color here on what a ski patroller is. This is a broad statement, and I have more details. But what does it take to become a ski patroller? There's requirements. You can't just walk into this job. What does it take to become a patroller?
Yeah, so as a patroller, we wear a lot of hats. So we have to come in with a lot of different skills, and there's a lot of skills that we get trained on in your first year and then year after year. So, first and foremost, everyone on ski patrol needs to be able to ski all the terrain on the mountain, and you don't just have to ski it, you have to ski it with an injured patient behind you,
Whoa.
Getting them off the mountain. So that goes into our medical certifications. We're all first responders, first and foremost. That's kind of the number one thing that we do, and it's what we're doing constantly is medical response. And it's a pretty unique style of medical response where we're not just dealing with people on the sidewalk, we're dealing with people in on a ski mountain. They're going to be up in the trees. They're going to be on cliffs. They can be anywhere on the mountain. So we all have these medical certifications. We all have at least an outdoor emergency care certification. A lot of patrollers have EMTs, basic EMTs, advanced EMTs. We have paramedics. We have nurses. We have doctors. In addition to that, we're doing avalanche mitigation. So we're all certified bomb technicians through the ATF. So every one of us.
And the ATF is the alcohol, tobacco, firearms. Continue.
Yep. So we're all certified to handle and deploy explosives on the mountain. So we use 2-pound explosives, and then sometimes we put those together and make bigger explosives. So we can use 4-pounders, 6-pounders, 8-pounders, you name it. So every one of us is trained in how to use those explosives, and we're all involved in our avalanche mitigation program. So we have a select team that is we call it our snow safety team, and they're our avalanche forecasting team. So they come up with our avalanche plan, and then we all go out and execute that plan. So every one of us is expected to carry that weight and to use explosives for that. In addition to that, we all go through different courses. Most of our courses go through the American Avalanche Institute. So we all have at least an in-house Avalanche Rec 1 course. And then you get certified in your Pro 1 and your Pro 2 as you go through the years. We also send patrollers to their Avalanche Pro Rescue course. Other things we do, let me think.
It's so much already, man. And how much do some of these classes cost? I mean, I'm already overwhelmed. It's impressive how certified and well-trained these people are. Again, reflecting back to then you're going to pay them $15 an hour or $16 an hour entry. Just for example, an EMT, the emergency medical technician class, how long does that take and how much does that cost?
That can cost quite a bit. I think I would say on average about $1,000. And that's definitely something that's going to be coming out of the pockets of patrollers. So
right.
Whether you take the course before you're a patroller or after you start patrolling, that's something that's coming out of pocket. Luckily, our avalanche courses, those are things that we have covered through our contract. So we've been able to put together a really good education package through the years. So that's one of our really big strong suits is how many people we can put through avalanche courses. So luckily, we have the privilege of not thinking too much about how much those courses cost because we do get those covered in-house.
I'm glad to hear that. And then we'll might as well have a fun question once in a while. How competent at skiing do you have to be? You said you have to ski all the terrain, but how do they qualify that for a ski patroller? How is that measured?
Well, it's really hard to measure because especially nowadays, a lot of the interviews are on the phone. So a lot of it is our managers basically asking questions, probing just to figure out how good of a skier you are. So
right.
Some people can slip through the cracks and get hired on that aren't as good as others, but I think in the past, you'd actually come onto the mountain, you'd have to show your stuff. But now a lot of it is
and for our listeners, in Aspen Extreme, they all line up on a cornice and then somebody blows a whistle and everybody like skis as radical as possible and crashes and, they collide and it's just totally unrealistic. But
unfortunately, we don't do that anymore.
Fortunately or unfortunately. Yeah. But continue. So.
Yeah. But then we have a lot of on mountain training that happens before patrollers get their red coats or like on the mountain. So it's at least 2 weeks of on-hill training. And that's kind of where you can get weeded out if your skills weren't up to snuff. But otherwise, that's where you get trained up on how to handle toboggans, how to handle steep terrain, how to first respond in a bunch of different situations, wherever they may be.
Yeah, love that. So yeah, sort of the funner part of this conversation, because I see that a lot. You know, I see when people are out there training to become patrollers, and you can tell that the young new people are nervous and they're getting watched. And you know, I've been through this stuff. You know, I had to do guide training tryouts, and oh my God, it was like finals week in college times 10. Because there was nowhere to hide, and it was just all day, and it's can be grueling. So again, these patrollers go through a lot to get where they are. And I had a couple.
The training really never stops either.
Right. Yeah. So continually, and you know, I think also criticism's not the right word, judgment's not the right word, but you know, your supervisors keeping an eye on you, making sure that you are developing, that you are learning, that you are getting better, that you're not making mistakes. So you do have to, you know, keep everything on the up and up, and you got to, you know, continue to progress, because you are on this important team, and people are keeping an eye on you and making sure that you're in the right place, doing the right things. So yeah, it's a challenging job. Do you know which mountain in the USA might pay their patrollers the most?
You know, I'm not sure on that. That's something I'd have to look into, but those numbers can be really hard to find unless you're just asking patrollers mountain to mountain. So that's the best way we've been able to research things, is just, hey, what does your buddy at, you know, X mountain make? What does your buddy at Y mountain make? You know? Yeah.
My crude research came up with Aspen through friends and Google. That Aspen somewhere around $22 an hour entry. And then they can get up to 30 or so if they've been there for a long time.
It's a very expensive community, and they have a really strong union there. So yeah, they've been able to negotiate really well, it sounds like.
Yeah. And again, maybe that neutralizes a bit, because I think the cost of living there is pretty high.
It's pretty astronomical. Yep.
Yeah. And I was curious if you knew anything about what European ski patrollers make.
I'm not sure about that. That'd be something I'd love to know.
I looked again, hearsay and just doing a little research, and it looked like it was across the board, that there was some that were down around hours, around $15 per hour. And then there was others, you know, in Switzerland, again, maybe cost of living, that they were, you know, almost entry level at $28 an hour. So
I'd love to see that.
Yeah. So interesting, you know, so there are places that are doing this. This is not outlandish. There's plenty of other positions in the world too that I think require a lot less certification and professionalism that make more money or the same money as you guys. So we'd all love to see you guys making more money. Also, I'm curious about ski instructors. Do you know how much ski instructors can make?
I don't know how much they make.
Yeah,
I know, you know, at Vail Resorts, they do the one size fits all approach for everything. So the minimum wage has been locked in at $15 an hour for them as well. So
okay.
I would imagine all of their brand new instructors are making $15 an hour. Now, they don't get the benefit of consistent hours that we get, and I don't know how the overtime situation works for them because it's a lesson by lesson basis.
And so I know some people that work in the industry, and ski instructors can make quite a bit more than ski patrollers, you know, up to $25, $30 an hour once they get to PSIA level 3. And you mentioned overtime, and that was a failure of mine. I meant to ask you, how do you get overtime? What qualifies as overtime for Park City Pro Patrol?
So for our patrol, overtime is everything after 40 hours, we get time and a half.
Okay.
So
great.
We're looking at pretty much a 10-hour day every day, and we work 5 days a week. So we're almost guaranteed 10 hours of overtime a week, which kind of speaks to how overworked our patrol gets. I know a lot of people want to work 4 days a week, because at 4 days a week, you're working a full 40-hour work week. But that's when overtime sets in for us. That's different at different mountains, but that's what we've had in our contract through the years, as long as I know.
I'm glad to hear that, because I've heard stories of patrol having requirements where they had to work 48 hours per week to get overtime.
I've heard that as well.
And that, I think that's true, because basically the company's mitigating for what you talked about. Patrollers often work 10-hour days, 5 days a week. So they're trying to avoid that. So I'm glad that you guys got around that. And I think a union was probably very beneficial in making that happen. Let's touch on holiday pay, because I heard one of the grievances that you folks had was something around, you had to get 1,500 hours of work in at Park City before you could get basically paid time off. How did that work, and how does that work now?
Well, that was really actually just for sick time. Paid time off is virtually impossible to get at this company.
Oh, wow.
I think you have to work 7 years year round at the resort in order to start accruing paid time off, which is really difficult considering it's a seasonal job.
Right.
So as a ski patroller, if you just do ski patrol each winter, you're really never looking at getting paid time off. Wow. We do we start accruing, in the past, start accruing paid sick time off after 1,500 hours, like you said, which meant that you had to complete basically one season of ski patrolling before you would get any sick time.
Whoa.
So we were looking at every one of our first year patrollers having no paid time off from being sick, which really it's been a problem for a long time. But once COVID hit, it became amplified because then you really want everyone to stay home if they're exhibiting any symptoms of illness, and no one has any way. Like I said earlier, it's really difficult for people to willingly skip on a paycheck. So if you had the sniffles and you had no sick time, you're pretty much asking them to come into work because they're not going to make any money and they're not going to be able to pay their rent. So we were able to negotiate in this contract. You start accruing your sick time right when you start. We were looking to get front-loaded sick time. So in a more perfect world, the day you start working as an employee, you come in with 80 hours of sick time, especially for a job like ours where we have such a high exposure to people from all over the world. We just have a lot of guest interface. So there's a lot of these things where I don't get to avoid interfacing with people from all over the world. I have to respond if they're hurt. So we were looking for a way to protect all of our employees against all of the inherent risks of our job. But our sick policy is still something we need to work on.
Okay, and I assume that's what you'll be looking forward to modifying in future contracts. So we'll hit one more heavier issue here. I'm curious, what you've seen, what you've experienced with PTSD, which I think we all know is post-traumatic stress disorder. Ski patrollers, people who work in emergency response situations, they regularly get PTSD. It's not strange. It's not abnormal. And because they see challenging accidents, think of the unfortunately blood and gore and painful injured people that they have to respond to. What sort of help might be in place at Vail Resorts for helping patrollers deal with stress, injury, PTSD on the job?
So that's another thing that I think we have a lot of room to grow on, is just how we're dealing with mental health with this company and in this industry. Because like you said, we're a really hard hit group just as first responders on the mountain. It takes a serious mental toll on every one of us. And people deal with people at their worst every day, day in, day out, and that adds up. It's not just those big gory incidents. It can be just the day after day buildup of constant bad situations, but then also the PTSD of those really bad situations too. So right now we basically have a digital hotline essentially that you can call.
Oh, good.
Which is it's something, but it's not enough. And then you can apply for therapy sessions through the company. But right now the best thing we have going for us basically still is just our internal culture of supporting each other and leaning on each other for support. So we've got some really wonderful people that we work with and we lean on each other. Now, that's not an ideal situation to be in, to constantly be leaning on each other for help. Ideally, we'd have some better resources at our hands provided by the company. But luckily, our coworkers, our managers, our supervisors, we have a lot of people that check in on us all the time and are just making sure that we're okay. And taking mental health days is something that is allowed in our sick policy. Of course, if we had more sick time, we'd actually have the ability to take those days when we need them. So that's another reason for sick time, is being able to take those days for mental health and when you're just really not on top of your game, and being able to come into work.
I love that you guys have community, because that is arguably the strongest piece to helping people with mental health. But I think we both agree that we need more. That there's a hotline is great. That's a good starting point. That you have to apply. I don't love that word. I bet you don't either. That you have to apply for therapy sessions. It'd be nice if you could just book them. I would love to see that, because I know what you guys go through. I have a lot of friends who've done ski patrol for a lot of years, and the stories are very challenging. What you guys do on the mountain, what you guys do for us. Hell, I've been injured on the mountain and drug off the mountain, and I was a pain in the ass. So it's great what you guys do. I wish there was more for you. What do you think ski resorts could do? Like, what would be better ways ski resorts could help ski patrollers work through stress injuries and PTSD?
That's hard. I'm not really sure, because it's really not my field of expertise. But I think that we should be consulting with people whose job it is to deal with these types of things, and create a better program locally, and have them be specific to each patrol, so that we have something in place where we have some safe place that's not our manager. Because I think it's great that we have people we can talk to at work, but a lot of times you don't want to go talk to your coworkers and you don't want to talk to your family. So having a safe space for people to go to, I think is something we need to have in person, because the fewer obstacles you put in the way to seeking help, I think the more likely people are to seek help. So we just need to make things easier for our patrollers to seek help when they need it, and not put them in a position where they feel like they need to go call their supervisor or talk to their best friend about it, or go home and talk to their significant other or their roommates. So we need to have a safe space at the mountain, I think.
Ridiculously strong answer right there. Thank you for that. Have you seen results of stress injuries and PTSD in your ski patrol career?
Yeah, I mean, amongst our patrol, it's prevalent. You see it everywhere, just the stresses of the job, and everyone responds to it differently. So there's people who put up a good front and you never know that they're dealing with anything. And then there's some people that just let it show a little bit more and they're more open and they talk to you about it. But I know we're all dealing with it to a different degree, but everybody's dealing with it.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. What can the general skiing and snowboarding population do to increase ski patrol wages?
I think just keep up the public outrage and the support for your ski patrollers. I think right now we're seeing this groundswell of support across the country and people are outraged. And I think the court of public opinion is probably the best thing we have going for us right now. I know that just this year, I think we've done a lot of just opening people's eyes to like what we're even dealing with. I think a lot of people were kind of blissfully ignorant about how much money we make and what we deal with. Because if you just come on your vacation, you don't really think about the mental stressors that your patrol is dealing with. You don't think that they make $15 an hour. You think, surely if they're throwing bombs at 4 a.m, then they must be getting paid significantly more money than they are because they're bomb technicians. Or
right.
Wow, they skied me off a cliff and they set up a rope anchor system. They lowered, my husband off the mountain. They must be so well paid because they're so highly qualified. So just opening people's eyes has been really effective. And now people are realizing what we deserve and they're standing up for it. So the more people stand up and tell their local mountain, tell the management, write letters, the better.
Fantastic. I love that. And is there anything specific we can do as a general public to support ski patrollers in general?
Well, if you're ever on the mountain, just give us a big thank you. I know those go a long way. Every time someone thanks me on the mountain, it really warms me up. It's like the best thing you can do is kind of get off the chairlift and just say thanks, because we deal with guests all the time. And, the more gratitude we receive on a daily basis, the better it goes. It seems like a really little thing for people. It's really easy to just yell thank you while you ski past a ski patroller, but we notice those kinds of things, and those things go a long way.
Thank you for that. I try to do that, and I'm going to do that more. To see the emotion on your face and the smile and the teeth coming out when you're talking about that, I can kind of see you going through that experience. So let's all make sure to thank our patrollers when we're out there. And that's something we can do every day, easily. It takes no energy. So the last thing, what's next? What's next for the Park City Ski Patrol, our Pro Patrol? And what might be your long-term goals?
Long-term goals, we're just going to keep working towards keeping our good patrollers around. And in more of the short term, what we're going to be working on is more like community outreach, more fun events. We're going to be having our big annual fundraiser in a couple of weeks. We call it the Backcountry Bow Wow. So we do a fundraiser with Wasatch Backcountry Rescue every year. Historically, that's been a fundraiser that benefits both the Union and Wasatch Backcountry Rescue. Right now, we're sitting in a good financial position after the Solidarity Fund. So this year, it'll be looking at just donating all of that money to WBR. So we get to focus on more of the fun stuff and then just highlighting all the hard work we do on the mountain and having fun doing what we love.
Great. And where can the good folks out there find out more about you guys and what you're doing in these events?
We have an Instagram, and that's our primary way of reaching out to people right now. We're at PCP SPA, PCP Spa as we call it.
Okay.
So that's the best way to just see what we're up to and how things are going. So now that we're in a contract, it'll be a lot more fun posts. We're going to start highlighting kind of a patroller of the week so we can really put some faces to what our patrol is. Because right now we're kind of this amorphous being that people are supporting, but let people get to know us as a patrol.
That's fantastic. And that's how I know everything that I know about you good folks is through that Instagram page. It's very cool. I've learned a lot and I'm looking forward to learning more. Patrick, that's all I've got for you. Do you have anything else you'd like to share here at the end of the show?
No, I think we covered it all. Thanks so much for having me today, Miles.
Patrick, it was great talking with you. You are a sharp human being. Thank you so much for being here. Have a great rest of the day.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the SnowBrains Podcast. If you liked this podcast, please share with your friends and family, and please subscribe. To find out more about SnowBrains, please visit us at snowbrains.com. You can also find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at SnowBrains.
Today's SnowBrains Podcast is brought to you by a Golden State. Find the perfect headspace for euphoric enjoyment. A Golden State is not a brand or a place. It's a state of being. Today's SnowBrains Podcast is brought to you by Killington. Big mountain skiing and riding meets small town charm at Vermont's Pico Mountain. Ski or ride Pico and save up to 40% off the ticket window rate when you purchase online in advance. Cancellations are always easy too, so save money and skip the line at the ticket window. Purchase your tickets today at picomountain.com/tickets. This episode of the SnowBrains Podcast was edited by Jared White, music by Chad Crouch, and I'm your host, producer, and creator, Miles Clark.